Beyond the edges of every known star map, past the places humanity ever learned to name, there is a stretch of space where signals thin and silence feels heavy. Human records would later call it the quiet expanse, a region where ships disappear, time feels uncertain, and entire civilizations vanish without leaving ruins. This is where the Virex Dominion exists. The Dominion does not conquer with fire or noise. It does not announce itself. One moment, a world is alive, full of voices, arguments, music, and love, and the next, it is quiet. Not destroyed. Not broken. Simply, emptied. The people remain, but something essential is gone. At the center of the Dominion floats Saelith Prime, a world grown rather than built. Vast arcs of biocrystal curve into the darkness like frozen waves, glowing softly with colors that shift and breathe. Those colors are not light alone. They are emotion, fear, sorrow, longing, harvested from countless species across the galaxy. From a distance, Saelith Prime looks beautiful. From within, it feels hungry. Every corridor hums with resonance. Walls pulse gently, responding to the emotional flow that powers the Empire. Entire districts survive on despair. Others on rage. And at the heart of it all, closest to the throne, is the rarest fuel of all. Love. Upon the throne of resonance sits Queen Saelith. She is not only a ruler by tradition, but a biological necessity. Her species evolved to channel emotion the way stars channel gravity. Without her, the Dominion would collapse. Without emotional energy, her people would die. She has ruled for so long that worlds blur together. Species rise, burn brightly for a moment, then fade into harvested memory. None have ever mattered beyond what they could provide. Until humanity. On a small blue planet called Earth, emotions spill constantly into space, music broadcast into the void, grief encoded in messages, hope shouted across networks. Humans feel everything, all at once, without restraint. To the Virex, Earth is not just another world. It is a beacon. When the Dominion arrives, the fall is quiet. Cities do not burn. Resistance fades as hope itself is drained away. Most humans never understand what is happening. They only feel tired. Hollow. Among the millions taken is a man named Elior. He is not a soldier. Not a leader. Just someone who has already learned how to live with loss. And when Queen Saelith senses his presence, she feels something she has not felt in centuries. Not fear. Not hatred. But a quiet, stubborn love that refuses to disappear. The Virex Dominion does not burn fuel. It does not mine stars or harvest suns. It survives on something far rarer. Emotion. For centuries beyond counting, the Dominion has drifted between galaxies like a quiet predator, elegant and patient. Wherever intelligent life rises high enough to feel deeply, hope, grief, devotion, longing, the Virex eventually arrive. Not with explosions or armies at first, but with silence. With calm. With promises that sound reasonable when fear is fresh. They do not enslave bodies. They harvest hearts. Cities of living crystal bloom on conquered worlds, tuned to resonate with emotional output. Joy becomes light. Sorrow becomes power. Fear stabilizes their structures. Love, pure, uncontrolled love, is the most potent energy of all. Too potent, in fact, for most species to survive giving up for long. And yet, the Dominion thrives. Until humanity is discovered. It begins with long-range scans at the edge of an unclaimed sector. A young species. Technologically ambitious. Emotionally volatile. Human signals bleed across space, music, arguments, laughter, grief broadcasts, desperate prayers whispered into the dark. The Virex sensors overload for the first time in recorded history. The readings don't make sense. Human emotional output is not just strong. It is layered. Grief braided with hope. Love tangled with anger. Loss carried alongside stubborn, reckless compassion. The Dominion does not hesitate. First contact is brief. Clinical. Final. Earth never stands a chance. Those deemed useful are taken. The rest are left behind, hollowed worlds growing quiet under alien skies. Elior Kane is captured on the 12th day of the occupation. He does not fight when the Virex soldiers enter the medical archive where he's been hiding. He doesn't scream. He doesn't beg. He simply closes the data slate he's been clutching and places it on the floor, carefully, as if it matters that nothing breaks. That small gesture is noted. Elior is not tortured. He is not punished. He is studied. The Virex do not understand cruelty the way humans do. Pain is inefficient. Fear is common. Rage is predictable. What they seek is resonance, emotional frequency that sustains their empire. Elior is brought into a chamber of soft light and transparent walls, connected to nothing that looks like a weapon. He is asked questions. Not with words, at first. With gentle probes that brush the edges of his mind. Images. Impressions. Emotional pulls. Most humans react violently to this process. Panic floods their systems. Memories fracture. Some beg to be emptied just to make it stop. Elior does not. When the probes reach him, they meet something unexpected. Not resistance, but depth. A quiet, steady pressure, like a tide that never stops returning to shore. The technicians exchange glances. The readings spike again. Not chaotic. Controlled. Persistent. They flag him for royal observation. Queen Saelith Virex is not accustomed to surprises. She has ruled the Dominion for 300 cycles, her presence binding the Empire together through sheer emotional command. Her form is tall and luminous, her translucent skin threaded with slow-moving currents of light, each color a record of harvested feeling. To her people, she is perfection, calm, distant, eternal. She has never needed to look closely at a single human. Until now. The Dominion does not hesitate. First contact is brief. Clinical. Final. Earth never stands a chance. Those deemed useful are taken. The rest are left behind, hollowed worlds growing quiet under alien skies. Elior Kane is captured on the 12th day of the occupation. He does not fight when the Virex soldiers enter the medical archive where he's been hiding. He doesn't scream. He doesn't beg. He simply closes the data slate he's been clutching and places it on the floor, carefully, as if it matters that nothing breaks. That small gesture is noted. Elior is not tortured. He is not punished. He is studied. The Virex do not understand cruelty the way humans do. Pain is inefficient. Fear is common. Rage is predictable. What they seek is resonance, emotional frequency that sustains their empire. Elior is brought into a chamber of soft light and transparent walls, connected to nothing that looks like a weapon. He is asked questions. Not with words, at first. With gentle probes that brush the edges of his mind. Images. Impressions. Emotional pulls. Most humans react violently to this process. Panic floods their systems. Memories fracture. Some beg to be emptied just to make it stop. Elior does not. When the probes reach him, they meet something unexpected. Not resistance, but depth. A quiet, steady pressure, like a tide that never stops returning to shore. The technicians exchange glances. The readings spike again. Not chaotic. Controlled. Persistent. They flag him for royal observation. Queen Saelith Virex is not accustomed to surprises. She has ruled the Dominion for 300 cycles, her presence binding the Empire together through sheer emotional command. Her form is tall and luminous, her translucent skin threaded with slow-moving currents of light, each color a record of harvested feeling. To her people, she is perfection, calm, distant, eternal. She has never needed to look closely at a single human. Until now. When Elior is brought before her, the chamber dims instinctively, responding to her arrival. He is restrained, but gently. The bindings are more symbolic than necessary. Saelith studies him in silence. She reaches for his emotional field, expecting the usual surge, fear at the sight of her, anger at captivity, despair at the loss of home. Instead, she feels stillness. Not emptiness. Stillness. It unsettles her. She presses deeper, careful not to extract, only to sense. What she touches is not sharp or loud. It is old. Worn smooth by time and loss. A quiet, persistent love that refuses to fade, no matter how many memories have eroded around it. Faces appear in her perception. A woman with tired eyes and a laugh that comes too easily. A child asleep on a couch, clutching a blanket. A small home filled with noise and warmth and absence. They are gone. All of them. Yet the love remains. Saelith withdraws abruptly. The chamber lights flicker, just once. That should not happen. She turns away from him, composing herself, and speaks aloud for the first time. This human is defective, one of the curators says carefully. He does not present standard emotional compliance. Elior lifts his head slightly at the sound of her voice. He cannot understand her words, but something in her tone cuts through the haze. Authority. Distance. Control. He meets her gaze. He does not hate her. That realization hits Saelith harder than any resistance could have. She has seen hatred before. It burns fast and bright, easy to drain. She has seen terror, which fractures beautifully under pressure. But this quiet endurance, this refusal to let love rot into bitterness, it is alien even to her. Why are you not afraid, she asks, though she knows he cannot understand. Elior exhales slowly. His voice is rough when he speaks, unamplified, unimportant to anyone but himself. I already lost everything, he says softly. You can't take what's gone. The translators fail to render his words accurately, but the emotion behind them reaches her anyway. Acceptance. Not surrender. Saelith feels a sharp ache ripple through her light-threaded veins. A warning signal from her own biology. She steps back, disturbed by the sensation. This human is dangerous. Not because he fights. Not because he resists. But because he loves without expecting anything in return. She orders him contained, monitored, untouched by the harvesters. As Elior is led away, he looks over his shoulder once. Not with hope. Not with defiance. With curiosity. Queen Saelith watches until he is gone. For the first time in centuries, the empire that feeds feels hungry. And for the first time in her immortal life, the queen wonders what it would mean to feel something she cannot steal. Instead, Saelith asks, what is it you feel, when nothing is being taken? The question catches him off guard. Humans are never asked that here. I feel, he says slowly, choosing each word with care, tired. But not empty. She tilts her head, studying him as if the answer has weight. Explain the difference. Elior exhales. Tired means you've carried something for a long time. Empty means it was stolen. Something flickers beneath Saelith's translucent skin, a fracture of light, sharp and brief. She steadies herself, masking it instantly. That is how their meetings begin. She does not drain him. She does not feed. She listens. Elior talks about Earth. About small things that should mean nothing, rain against windows, laughter in cramped rooms, the way silence feels different when it's shared. He speaks of people he loved and lost, not with bitterness, but with a quiet tenderness that refuses to fade. Saelith feels it all. Not as energy. Not as sustenance. But as warmth. It terrifies her. For the first time in her existence, emotion flows into her without being consumed. There is no surge of power, no stabilizing resonance to feed the dominion. Instead, there is something softer, slower. It lingers. Connection. After each meeting, she returns to the throne weaker than before. Her attendants notice the changes quickly. Light fractures beneath her skin like hairline cracks in glass. Pain ripples through her form without warning, sharp enough to steal her breath. When she channels the harvested emotions of entire worlds, it barely steadies her anymore. Love does not nourish her. It burns. Still, she returns to Elior. One cycle, she arrives trembling, unable to hide it. Elior sees the way her glow dims, the way her posture falters as she lowers herself across from him. "You're hurt," he says quietly. Saelith stiffens. "I am adapting." He shakes his head. "No. You're suffering." No one has ever said that to her. She feels it then, a surge of weakness so sudden she has to brace herself against the chamber wall. Light fractures beneath her skin, glowing too bright, too fast. Elior stands without thinking and reaches for her. The moment his hand touches her arm, agony floods her system. Not because he is human, but because he cares. Because the contact carries no fear, no despair, no rage to convert. Only concern. She gasps, pulling away, collapsing to one knee as the chamber lights flicker violently. "Don't," she breathes. "You must not touch me like that." "Like what?" he asks, voice shaking. "Like you matter." The pain intensifies. Saelith realizes the truth in that moment, clear and undeniable. Love is lethal to her species. Her body evolved to consume emotion, not receive it freely. Connection without extraction destabilizes her at the deepest biological level. Every moment she spends listening instead of feeding fractures her further. And yet, she does not order his removal. Instead, she whispers, "Stay." Elior kneels beside her, close enough to feel the heat radiating from her fractured light, but careful not to touch. "Why are you doing this?" he asks. "Why risk everything?" She looks at him then, truly looks at him, and the answer comes not as words, but as a feeling she allows him to sense. Loneliness. An empire built on stolen emotion has never known what it means to be seen without being consumed. "You give without weakening," she says softly. "And it is destroying me." Elior swallows. "Then stop." "I cannot," she replies. For the first time. "I do not want to." They sit in silence after that, closer than before, divided only by the space she cannot cross without pain. The chamber hums around them, unaware that something impossible is happening within its walls. A queen is falling in love. And every heartbeat brings her closer to death. Elior understands the truth slowly, the way grief settles in, not all at once, but in quiet pieces that refuse to be ignored. It begins with patterns. Saelith arrives later to their meetings now. She moves more carefully. The fractures beneath her translucent skin linger longer each time, glowing faintly like cracks in cooling glass. Sometimes she pauses mid-sentence, as if steadying herself against a sudden wave of weakness. At first, Elior tells himself it's nothing. He has lived long enough to recognize denial when it settles into his chest. Then one cycle, she does not arrive at all. Hours pass. The chamber remains dim and silent, its walls pulsing slowly with distant emotional currents. Elior sits alone, listening to the hum beneath the floor, feeling a cold certainty take shape inside him. When she finally appears, she is barely holding herself upright. "You shouldn't be here," he says immediately, rising to his feet. "You're worse." Saelith offers a faint smile, carefully composed, practiced over centuries. I am, functional. That's not an answer, he replies. His voice is gentle, but firm. What's happening to you? She hesitates. That alone tells him everything. Every time you come here, he continues softly, every time you listen instead of taking, it costs you something, doesn't it? Her glow flickers. The silence stretches. Yes, she finally admits. The word resonates between them, stripped of power and authority. Just truth. Elior exhales slowly, the weight of it pressing into his ribs. How much time? Saelith looks away. Time is difficult to measure in your terms. Try, he says. For me. Another pause. Longer this time. My lifespan is not measured in years, she says carefully. But in stability. In resonance. Each meeting with you destabilizes me further. Elior closes his eyes. Every instinct in him wants to pull back, to put distance between them, to protect her even if it means losing her. He has lost people before. He knows the shape of that pain. I'm killing you, he says quietly. No, she corrects. You are not taking anything from me. That doesn't make it better. It does to me. He opens his eyes and looks at her, really looks at her. Not as a queen. Not as the ruler of an empire that devours worlds. Just as someone standing at the edge of herself, choosing connection over survival. Why won't you stop, he asks. You know what this costs. She turns back to him, and when she speaks, there is no resonance in her voice. No command. Just honesty. Because for the first time in my existence, I am not alone while I am dying. The words hit him harder than any truth he has ever carried. Saelith lowers herself slowly to the floor, resting against the smooth curve of the chamber wall. Elior kneels beside her, careful not to touch, close enough to feel the warmth radiating from her fractured light. My people survive by stealing what you give freely, she says. Fear. Love. Grief. Hope. We convert it. Control it. Consume it. She looks at her hands, the faint glow trembling beneath her skin. We do not know how to receive without hunger. We were never meant to. Elior swallows. And now? And now, she says softly, I have learned what it means to listen without feeding. And my body does not know how to survive it. Silence settles between them again, heavy but unbroken. Elior's thoughts race. Every solution leads to loss. If he leaves, she lives, but returns to a hollow existence that will eventually consume countless others. If he stays, she continues to weaken, inch by inch, moment by moment. There has to be another way, he says. Saelith shakes her head. I have searched every archive. Every memory of my species. There is no record of emotional exchange without extraction. No precedent. Then we make one. She studies him, something almost like sadness flickering across her glow. You do not understand. To love without consuming is incompatible with my biology. Elior leans closer, his voice steady despite the ache in his chest. Humans weren't built for space either. We adapted anyway. A faint, broken sound escapes her, not quite laughter, not quite pain. You are relentless. You noticed. He hesitates, then continues, choosing each word carefully. What if it's not about stopping the pain all at once? What if it's about learning how to carry it differently? Saelith's light pulses unevenly. Explain. Humans don't survive love because it's painless, he says. We survive because we share it. We let it change us. Slowly. He meets her gaze. You don't have to take what I feel. And I don't need you to give anything back. Just, be here. Let it exist. The chamber hum deepens, reacting subtly to the shift between them. Saelith closes her eyes, and for a terrifying moment, Elior thinks she might collapse completely. Instead, she inhales, a deliberate, unfamiliar action, and releases it just as slowly. The pain does not vanish. But it lessens. Her glow steadies, dimmer than before, but no longer fracturing. She opens her eyes, stunned. It is, slower. Elior lets out a breath he didn't realize he was holding. That's all love ever is. Slow. Patient. Relentless. She looks at him with something new in her expression, wonder edged with fear. If I continue, if I learn this, I may never be able to rule as I once did. Good, he says gently. That empire shouldn't exist the way it does. A long silence follows. Then Saelith reaches out, not to touch him, but to rest her hand on the floor between them, close enough that their warmth mingles without pain. You are offering me something impossible, she says. A way to love without stealing. Elior nods. I know. And it may still kill me. His voice softens. Then at least it won't be empty. Saelith closes her eyes again, allowing his presence to settle into her without hunger, without extraction. The pain remains, but beneath it, something else begins to form. Not power. Not sustenance. Connection. For the first time in the history of the Virex Dominion, love exists without being consumed. And for the first time, Queen Saelith chooses it anyway, even knowing the cost. The Dominion discovers the bond the way it discovers everything else, through imbalance. At first, it is subtle. Emotional yields drop across distant systems. Entire districts of Vaelith Prime dim, their glow losing its sharp intensity. The resonance chambers hum unevenly, struggling to stabilize power that no longer flows as it should. The High Conclave notices. They always do. Threx is the first to speak it aloud. He stands before the gathered Dominion Council, his form rigid, his light sharp and controlled, untouched by fracture or doubt. Where Saelith's glow has softened over time, Threx's remains precise, honed by centuries of perfect extraction. The Queen is withholding, he says calmly. The words ripple through the chamber. Withholding what? Another counselor asks. Consumption, Threx replies. Emotion is being received without conversion. Energy is being allowed to pass through. Murmurs spread, sharp with unease. That is when the name surfaces. Elior. A human anomaly. A specimen that should have been catalogued, drained, discarded. Instead, he has become a constant variable in the Queen's private chambers. Threx does not raise his voice when he gives the order. Terminate the human, he says. Immediately. The decision is framed as necessity, not cruelty. Without extraction, the Dominion cannot sustain itself. Their cities are not merely structures, they are extensions of emotional flow. Without it, walls crumble. Pathways fracture. Entire spires begin to decay into inert crystal. Already, Vaelith Prime is changing. Elior sees it first through absence. Guards vanish from corridors he once passed through in silence. Lights flicker where they never have before. The hum beneath the floor stutters, like a heartbeat struggling to maintain rhythm. When the guards finally arrive, they do not pretend it is anything else. You are to be executed, one of them transmits flatly. Your existence destabilizes the Dominion. Elior does not resist. He has known this moment would come. They bring him to the central chamber, where Saelith waits. She feels them approaching before she sees them. A sudden tightening in the air. A surge of fear that does not belong to her, but presses against her senses like a scream muffled by distance. When Elior is forced to his knees before her, she stands too quickly, pain fracturing through her form in a violent cascade of light. No, she says. The word echoes, raw, unfiltered. Threx steps forward, unbowed. Your Majesty, the imbalance is spreading. Entire sectors are collapsing. The Dominion cannot survive this deviation. Saelith looks at Elior. His face is calm, resigned, but his eyes search hers, not for rescue, but for permission. Say nothing, she whispers to him through the private channel they share. Let me speak. Threx watches her carefully. This human must be removed. Once extraction resumes, stability will return. You will recover. Saelith's glow trembles. And what of the worlds we have hollowed, she asks. What of the silence we leave behind? Threx does not hesitate. That silence is survival. She turns to him fully now, pain etched into every fracture beneath her skin. And what if survival without connection is simply prolonged extinction? The chamber reacts to her words. The resonance field destabilizes. Cracks spider through the biocrystal walls, thin but spreading. Outside, the Dominion decays. Cities that once pulsed with stolen emotion now sag under their own weight. Towers dim, losing cohesion. The Empire, built on consumption, cannot endure abstinence. Threx's voice hardens. You are failing your purpose. Saelith makes the decision in silence. Not because she is afraid to speak it aloud, but because some choices are too heavy for ceremony. Too final for witnesses who still believe power can be preserved if it is held tightly enough. She stands alone in the core vault, the deepest chamber of Vaelith Prime. This is where the Dominion stores what it has taken, layer upon layer of compressed emotion, crystallized into living reservoirs. Fear hums sharply in one lattice. Grief pulses low and dense in another. Love, thin, rare, and volatile, glows faintly at the center, bound by containment fields older than most stars. This is the heart of the Empire. And it is dying. The city around her groans softly, not with pain, but with exhaustion. The biocrystal walls flicker between colors, unable to stabilize. Spires that once sang with resonance now echo hollowly, like instruments forgotten mid-performance. Saelith feels it all. Every fracture in the Dominion mirrors one within her. Her glow is dimmer now, uneven. The fractures beneath her translucent skin no longer seal themselves. Her breath, once unnecessary, once ceremonial, comes slower, heavier. She presses a hand against her chest, feeling something unfamiliar. A heartbeat. Mortality has already begun to claim her. Behind her, Elior stands quietly. He was not meant to be here. No human has ever entered the core vault and remained whole. But the Dominion's safeguards are weakening, and Saelith no longer has the strength, or the will, to keep him out. You don't have to do this, he says softly. She smiles, small and tired. That is the first time anyone has ever said that to me. She turns toward the reservoirs, toward centuries of stolen lives held in perfect suspension. My people believed survival justified everything, she continues. We convinced ourselves that because we did not destroy worlds physically, we were merciful. Her fingers brush the containment field. But silence, she says, is a kind of extinction too. Elior steps closer, careful, uncertain. If you release them, there's no going back. I know. The Dominion will collapse. Yes. And you, his voice falters. You won't survive this as you are. Saelith finally looks at him fully, and for the first time, there is no distance between queen and human. No resonance. No hierarchy. Just two beings standing at the edge of irreversible change. I am already not surviving, she says gently. I am enduring. There is a difference. She closes her eyes. And then she opens the vault. The release is not violent. There is no explosion, no blinding surge of power. Instead, it happens the way breath returns to lungs after being held too long. Slowly. Carefully. Honestly. The containment fields dissolve, one by one. Fear unravels first, rushing outward like a storm finally allowed to move. Grief follows, deep and heavy, spreading across space in vast, invisible waves. Love comes last, hesitant, fragile, but intact. Across the galaxy, the effect is immediate. On conquered worlds, people stagger as something long suppressed floods back into them. Memories return without warning. Pain resurfaces. So does joy. Entire populations fall to their knees, not in worship, but in shock at the sudden weight of feeling again. On Earth, humans wake screaming, laughing, crying, sometimes all at once. Families cling to each other, overwhelmed by emotions they had forgotten were ever stolen. Artists collapse in tears as inspiration crashes back into them like a tide. Grief long frozen finally breaks, and with it, healing begins. The Dominion cities cannot withstand the loss. Saelith Prime dims dramatically as emotional power drains from its foundations. Towers fracture, not catastrophically, but irreversibly. Transportation lattices fail. Resonance chambers fall silent. An empire built on theft cannot survive restitution. Within the core vault, Saelith collapses to her knees. Elior catches her before she hits the floor, pulling her carefully into his arms. She is lighter than before. Smaller somehow. Her glow fades to a soft, uneven shimmer. I can feel everything, she whispers, breath shallow. Not as power. Not as fuel. As sensation. Her hand trembles as she presses it against his chest. Your heartbeat. Your warmth. It's overwhelming. You're human now, he says quietly. She shakes her head faintly. No. I am, something unfinished. Her skin changes as he watches, no longer translucent crystal, but something closer to flesh, fragile and imperfect. The fractures beneath her skin fade, replaced by bruises where light once lived. Mortality settles into her like gravity. Outside, alarms echo weakly, then fade. Threx's voice carries faintly through the collapsing channels, angry, disbelieving, already irrelevant. Without the emotional reservoirs, the conclave has no authority, no leverage, no throne to defend. The Dominion fractures into silence. Not the enforced silence of emptiness, but the quiet that follows a truth finally spoken. Elior cradles Saelith as the last of the stored emotions disperse into the void. Her breathing grows steadier, though weaker. She looks up at him, eyes no longer glowing, but unmistakably alive. Is this how it feels, she asks. To exist without purpose imposed from birth? He nods. It's terrifying. She smiles faintly. Good. The core vault around them continues to dim, its role complete. Saelith Prime will not vanish overnight. But it will never rule again. It will become what it always feared. Just another world. Saelith closes her eyes, exhaustion pulling at her. I gave them back what we stole, she murmurs. Even if my people never forgive me, it was necessary. Elior presses his forehead to hers. You didn't just free them, he says. You freed yourself. Her hand tightens weakly in his sleeve. Stay, she whispers. Not as a command. Not as a queen.